Welcome to the Mark David Show, where the truth is a conspiracy. So let's go to this Bloomberg Marie Antoinette moment. This was written by one of my favorite writers. He actually writes for Rolling Stone. He doesn't really belong in this, except it is a way of getting to the mainstream. This is Matt Taibbi, and this is from his blog, rollingstone.com, and he just talks about how when Michael Bloomberg had said, "Don't blame the banks," how basically that was his Marie Antoinette moment. You know, Marie Antoinette, of course, is the French aristocrat who said, "Let him eat cake." Of course, that was right before she went into the guillotine. Okay, so now you have Michael Bloomberg saying, "Don't blame the banks." And Matt Taibbi does a great job in this article saying, okay, well, Washington wasn't smart enough to figure out, and it was the banks, though. I mean, come on, the banks created these derivative mortgages. The banks did this. The banks actually went out and sought buyers and then shorted and bought credit default swaps on those very same securities. As I've talked a million times, I'm not going to get too far into that, but it's like, of course it was the banks. Michael Bloomberg, Marie Antoinette Bloomberg. I mean, seriously, what a stupid comment. This is what trips me out. I wonder if these people really understand how stupid their comments are, and how this can't do anything but hurt them eventually. Look at that puppet out of Greece, Papandreou. Where's he now? He was defending the banks. Where's he now? Interesting. And actually, not to jump around too much, because I know I'm terrible about that, but actually, what's happening in Europe is going to come out very much like what is happened in the real estate collapse in the United States, as far as how the bubbles were created, how they were shorted, how they were burst, so on and so forth. I'm going to get to this a little later in the show, but now, as of today, Warren Buffett, who I have a beautiful rant for today, Warren Buffett and Credit Suisse both came out today and said, Euro's toast. Forget about it. It's over. Now, how much can you trust them? Probably not a lot, but the point is, a lot of the same methods, the same banks. Goldman Sachs was all over Europe. Goldman Sachs is actually who went into Greece, who went into Italy, and showed them how to cook their books in order to get into the euro. And then, of course, they took on massive amounts of debt. And as I told you they would, and it's not just me. I can't just say it's just me, but as I told you they would. When the time was right, they pulled those politicians out, and they installed Goldman Sachs-related politicians in, just as I said they would. It's a pretty easy scam, honestly. It's pretty easy. Actually, Bernie Madoff has blown the lid on it already. So no one can say they didn't see it coming. No one can claim that they don't understand this at this time. Only thing they can claim is maybe I worked too hard. I didn't have the time to really look into it. However, I mean, obviously, there's the Mark David Show, among others. Okay, so that's rollingstone.com. That's Michael Bloomberg's Marie Antoinette moment. There are actually a lot of people now who are claiming that there will be another Marie Antoinette type outcome. And I don't know. I don't want to see that, actually. It would be much better if, say, I don't know, somebody went to prison for, MF Global. If ever there's a candidate for prison, it's John Corzine. I talked about him last week. If ever there's a candidate for a prison cell, it's John Corzine. Now they're saying, what is it, 1.3 billion their minimum that the CFTC is expecting, the CME is expecting, that will not be paid out to John Corzine and MF Global's victims. MF Global, again, I've talked about primary dealers. I explained primary dealers basically are the inside banks. And MF Global was a primary dealer. John Corzine, the head of MF Global, of course. It amazes me how many people don't know anything about MF Global still. This is the largest bankruptcy ever. It just happened. Billions of dollars frozen up that they just went into people's accounts and took, you see? And it's like this is getting blocked out of a lot of people's heads. It's in the mainstream press. If ever you're going to listen to the mainstream, listen to the mainstream media about MF Global at least. Know that they're spinning it, but MF Global, they're doing like everything you could ever have a nightmare about our economy doing, MF Global has done. And John Corzine used to be the head of Goldman Sachs. Oh, there's that name again. Oh, by the way, Goldman Sachs' nickname officially in financial land is Giant Squid. That's what GS actually stands for, Giant Squid. So if I say Giant Squid, that's what I'm talking about. Anyway, he used to be the CEO of the Goldman Sachs Giant Squid, John Corzine. He was congressman and governor from New Jersey. And he actually got pushed out of Giant Squid by Hank Paulson. Hank Paulson ran the investment bank side of things, and John Corzine ran the bond underwriting. Anyway, John Corzine was involved in long-term capital management's restructuring. That was when long-term capital management was a ginormous hedge fund that collapsed in the 90s under the same... under Alan Greenspan, a lot of the same players. I think Tim Geithner, our current Treasury Secretary, was involved in that. There's really not a lot of people I'm talking about here that you guys should all really know about. I mean, and if you do know about this stuff, I commend you. But seriously, there's no one in the United States who should not understand what MF Global is and what they've done and what they represent. They're first of all, just the fact that they're a primary dealer that went down, that's enormous. There's so much speculation out there that they were intentionally taken down so Goldman Sachs Giant Squid could jump in. But most importantly, they've frozen up like $1.3 billion in people's money. And there's a lot of farmers that, and we're talking about commodities options and commodities futures. That's what farmers invest in. And I'm going to get to an article. Today on the Mark Davis Show, I feel like we're kind of narrowing down the scope of how all this, what's happened globally, is creeping right up on you right here, especially people who live in the Palouse. It's creeping right up to your door. That's where this is all going to. And we're getting closer and closer. We're going to talk some farming tonight on the Mark Davis Show because farmers, y'all are kind of in a very vulnerable spot right now. A lot of farmers, and I'm not talking about really tiny farmers, but especially these larger farmers, family farmers, large business farmers, not necessarily corporate farms, but farms big enough around here and certainly in the Midwest, they buy futures all the time. So that's what MF Global, that's what they specialize in. They sold commodities futures and options, and there's people, multi-millionaires in futures and options saying, get out, sell anything that's paper, get out of it, get out of it, get out of it. Because there's no regulation. There's no one. The whole system is so rigged, exactly as Bernie Madoff said. The whole system is so rigged. People, this is creeping right up to your door. So I understand something. I'm gonna detract from headlines for just a second. I understand that this area in the Pacific Northwest has a stigma to it of paranoia. Okay, I understand that. And it has a stigma of, and I hate this term because it's a label like slut or worse, the term conspiracy theory. I understand that you don't want to be tagged that, you don't want to be known for that. I understand that. But this area also is full of people that are somewhat intelligent, and there's just some things you just can't look away from intelligently, and that's one of them. When the biggest bankruptcy ever happens in front of you, and they freeze up $1.3 billion in people's money in there. They go into private citizens' accounts and take the money on what they're calling a margin call. Oh, we need this money for a margin call because we because MF Global went down. When that happens, you can't just look away and say, well, it had to do with Goldman Sachs, so I don't want to get involved in a conspiracy theory. No. We're not going down that level. Okay.